On this week's episode of the Brew and Shavers SEC Sports Podcast, we take a look at the chaos of the transfer portal, a review of last week's playoff games, as well as looking forward to this week's playoff games. There's a lot on this episode. Thanks for watching. Here we go. Hey there, sports fans. Welcome back to another episode of the Brew and Shavers SEC Sports Podcast, available on all your favorite podcast platforms, as well as our own YouTube channel. We are so glad that you're with us today. There's a lot of activity going on in college football. Some people might say, well, the season's winding down, but the transfer portal opened, Darren, and there's been a excessive amount of activity going on. So give us the latest update. I know this is a fluid situation, and as soon as we say something, there's going to be changes. But as of right now, the date of recording this episode, Darren, give us an update on the madness of the transfer portal.
Yeah, unfortunately, you're right. It's almost like a ticker tape. Now, that's an aged reference. There's going to be people who go, "What is that?" But there's also going to be people that immediately know what
You're dating yourself.
Yeah,
dating
exactly.
yourself. I'm not nearly that old.
I'm used to talking about a ticker tape where you have to pick up the rotary phone and no, never.
Yep.
But you're right. It's instantly outdated as soon as you say it. But the big number to throw out that is instantly outdated, but only because it's going to continue to grow, which is insane to say, is as of right now, at time of recording, there are over 4,000 players in the transfer portal. That is an insane number. Obviously, it's a record-breaking number. I think it truly gives us an indication of just how free agency on steroids college football has become. There's that many people in the portal, but the thing that we're seeing even more this year is the SEC is not immune to that, and it's not just about coaching changes. At the time of recording, you see these are the top four teams that have players in the portal. Auburn at 35, Florida at 28, Mississippi State at 28, and LSU at 25. And when you and I were talking about this prior to recording, the thing you pointed out was three of these four had coaching changes. That makes the Mississippi State number even more insane, that they are tied for second in most exits, and they didn't have a coaching change. And, they're kind of an offensive program searching for a defensive identity. They just made the change to Zach Arnett with defensive coordinator. So you would think, oh, well, that makes sense. Probably the majority of these are defensive players. That's not the case. A largest majority of them are tight ends, wide receivers, and O linemen. So it really makes you wonder what in the world's going on in Starkville. I mean, Auburn, Florida, LSU, those do make sense. You've got coaching changes, you've got turmoil, with changing of systems on the offensive side, or maybe even on both sides of the ball. So that does kind of make sense. But even with that being said, to have four teams in the SEC that have 25 players that have entered the portal is just unreal. And there's only more than 50% of the SEC has had 20 plus players leave already, basically as soon as the portal opened, which is just a crazy number. It really is unreal just how many people are hitting the portal now.
Are some of the other factors, in addition to the ones you mentioned, Darren, you have players that are looking for a payday, players who are unhappy with maybe their playing time. I know there's so many factors here. Would you say that money is at the top of the list for a lot of these guys?
I think at this point, with the guys that are getting out after the portal opened, I'd say the ones that are kind of late to the game, most likely it's just all about money. I think some of the earlier guys that get out, they see the writing on the wall. Not being disparaging or demeaning in any way. I don't mean this as a negative comment, but when the early This person is declared for the portal. This person's declared for the portal. A lot of those times, even if it's your team, it's names you don't recognize. These guys are going to try to find playing time somewhere. They know they're not going to get it, but once you get kind of through that initial wave, I think that's exactly what it is, either as a negotiating tactic or as a I'm just going to go get more money somewhere else. I think once you get that second wave, that's exactly what it is. It's all about the payday and who's going to pay the most, basically.
Yeah, it's hard to judge the motives of these players, and it's hard to throw stones at them. What would we do if we were in that
Absolutely,
situation? You look at
absolutely,
Sorsby, the quarterback from Texas, or well, now he's at Texas Tech, but
yeah,
from Cincinnati. He. I'm not sure. I mean, Big 12. So he didn't really jump to a higher conference, but he did get a much better payday.
yeah,
Um, and we're seeing a lot of that from guys that maybe are at smaller schools, and but the problem is for every guy that gets that big payday, there's going to be 100 or more that don't.
they don't. That's
That,
exactly right.
they're just not going to work out that way for them. Some of the good news that we've heard in the portal, if you're an Ole Miss fan, you have to be ecstatic about the comments that came out from Trinidad Chambliss, your quarterback. If he's granted that that extra year of eligibility, he was very clear in saying he's going back to Ole
Yeah,
Miss. So, Ole Miss fans, they're riding a wave right now.
absolutely,
Very good times in Oxford, and isn't it amazing that in the moment where there seemed to be this crisis that was going to torpedo the program, they they're moving on. They're one of four teams left in the playoff.
absolutely.
Their starting quarterback says, if the NCAA allows me, I'm coming back."
And the guy that's led them through the crisis and gotten them on this end of it in Pete Golding is going to be their guy next year. I mean, no matter what these next couple of games or one game looks like, if you're an Ole Miss fan, man, you got to be excited. You talking about a roller coaster? Have mercy. Ole Miss fans have been on the roller coaster.
Well, let's talk a little bit about last week's playoff game. Ole Miss winning 39-34 against Georgia in the Sugar Bowl. An incredible game from start to
Yep.
finish. We mentioned Trinidad Chambliss. A stellar performance on his part. Some of the plays that he was able to come up with, and a very controversial call that Kirby Smart has tried to clarify, going for it on fourth down deep in their own territory.
Yep.
I think Kirby came out and said the design was not for that to be, the ball should not have been snapped. That's on us as coaches. But still, it was one of those moments, Darren, when you're thinking, okay, yeah, Georgia doesn't want to give us the ball, but what are they doing here? And
Yeah.
now we kind of have more to the story,
Now we
but
know a little bit
still,
more.
how great. You got to give credit to Ole Miss
Yeah,
with everything
absolutely.
going on. What a huge victory for that program.
Yeah, and I think a late breaking word from New Orleans. I think that the stage is being run off the field again right now. Sorry, I couldn't resist that one. But
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
you got to give all the credit in the world to Pete Golding and this staff, the way they've held things together. But most importantly, I think you've really got to give a ton of credit to the guys on this team, because we talk all the time, even about, well, it's an 11 o'clock kickoff. You know, when you're dealing with 18 to 24-year-olds, what is that going to look like? How are they going to react? They lost last week, and these guys had every opportunity in the world to just, even if they didn't emotionally give up, to be taken out of the zone, to be put in a place where they're trying, they're wanting to motivate, they're wanting to focus, but it's just not happening. They had every opportunity in the world for that, but they've stuck with it. They've stayed in it. They've stayed in the zone, and here we are. I mean, you talking about? I mean, you know, they beat Georgia. Everybody saw that coming, right? No, nobody saw that coming, and they keep doing it well. I mean, Trinidad Chambliss had 362 yards passing. Goodness gracious, what a game that dude had! And the rest of Lacey was at almost 100 yards rushing. It, the whole team had the game they needed to have and was able to stay in the place where, in preparation, they put themselves in a position for that. You can't ask for more from this group than what they're given right now. Really incredible what they're doing.
Yeah, especially with the coaches that have moved on to sign contracts to
Mm-hmm.
coach at LSU. They're doing double duty,
Absolutely.
flying back and forth between Oxford and Baton Rouge. Give those guys credit. You may be unhappy with their decision to
Right.
follow Kiffin to LSU, but they haven't abandoned you. They're coming back. They're trying to make this work for the benefit of the team. So kudos to them. I thought Charlie Weiss Jr. called a great game
Yeah.
offensively,
Absolutely.
and so
The game of
I
his
like.
life. It was a
Yeah,
great game.
it was a wonderful game. If you're a Georgia fan, you're probably not thinking, nah, not so much.
Oops.
But Ole Miss fans, enjoy the moment because you got a tough one coming up this Thursday that we'll talk about in
Yep.
just a few moments. But we want to go back and talk about the other SEC team that was in the playoffs, had pulled off a big upset against Oklahoma and Norman. Alabama goes out to the Rose Bowl to face Indiana. Darren, I've got to go on the record to say I have completely underestimated Indiana.
Oh,
This is a good, good football team.
yeah.
They play well together. They execute well. They're well coached, and they humiliated Alabama in front of a national TV audience, 38-3. I didn't see that coming.
No. Held Alabama to under 200 yards. When Alabama's specialty, this iteration of Alabama's specialty is supposed to be offense, held them to under 200 yards, held them to less than 30% third down conversion, held them under 50 yards rushing. Of course, we all saw that coming, right? I mean, goodness gracious, incredible what they did. And then on top of that, put up 400 yards. Offensively, put up 400 yards on an SEC defense, something that just should not happen. And they did it, like you said, the level of play when it comes to executing the plan and doing it with attention to detail and without penalties while taking care of the ball. I mean, this team is really, really impressive. And it's just awesome to watch somebody that everybody has dismissed do what they've done.
Mm-hmm. And it's raised a lot of questions in Tuscaloosa about where this program is heading. Kalen DeBoer back-to-back 4-loss seasons.
Yep.
Yeah, it was a totally different narrative a week after the win over Oklahoma.
Yeah.
It was like, wow, Alabama is in good shape. Kalen DeBoer's doing fine. Now we're back to what is going on, what's happening. And there's a lot of people with a variety of different opinions. A lot of what I've heard centers around NIL and Alabama not being able to pay or have the money for NIL that some of these other schools have. I don't know if that is entirely
Yeah.
if that's the entire case or not. Uh, but this, do Alabama fans need to lower their expectations now, Darren? I heard someone today on a show, national show, make the comment that Alabama's had Bear Bryant, Alabama's had Nick Saban. You throw in, I think even Gene Stallings won a national championship
Right.
there. So, but you take Bryant and Saban, those are two Hall of Fame coaches, and most schools don't get one coach of that caliber.
Absolutely.
Are those days over? Kalen DeVore is a good coach, but are the days of that caliber of Bryant and Saban, are those days done in Tuscaloosa?
Well, here's the thing. You talk about those, and I can't list off all the coaches, but you talk about those days being done. You look outside of those and what has been done. I mean, really honestly, Bear Bryant was the standard. But after Bear Bryant, what really happened in Alabama? Leading up to Gene Stallings winning the national championship, there wasn't a whole lot that went on. And honestly, part of what led Gene Stallings to that championship was Bill Curry came in, did incredible recruiting, put a lot of pieces together, and basically they ran him off because he didn't coach under the bear and he came from Georgia Tech instead of coming, having an Alabama heritage. And Gene Stallings came in and within 2 years won a national championship pre-portal. So with Bill Curry's guys, now, whether or not Bill Curry could have done that, don't know. But that's a lot of that lead in was put in place by Bill Curry. Gene Stallings won the national championship. Then he moves on or retires. And then what happened since? And the answer is absolutely nothing. Misery, defeat, scandal, horrible disappointment, you name it. They experienced all of that. Thankfully for Alabama fans, in spite of everyone around him telling him, don't go to the pros, Saban decided to go to the pros and at the time, couldn't come back to LSU. So he ended up at Alabama. Outside of that, what really has gone on at Alabama? So I don't know if it's as much lowering expectations as it is being realistic. Understand that to get from the Bear to Saban was not a one coach transition. There were a whole lot of ugly, disappointing years with a little bit of a Gene Stallings highlight in the middle of it, actually kind of on the front end of it, wasn't really in the middle of it. There were a lot of disappointing years, and you might be looking at the same thing. And I think you have to be realistic in your expectations, not necessarily say, well, we don't want to win national championships, but understand it's not a point A to point B. It might be a point A to point H or I that gets you there, but there's going to be some difficulty in the transition.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's well said. Tough times
Yeah,
right now in Tuscaloosa after that defeat at the hands of Indiana. Let's
absolutely.
move on to the next round of the playoffs as we move into the semifinals, aren't we? In the semifinals, right?
Yes.
So this Thursday, January 8th at 6:30 p.m.
Yeah.
Ole Miss and Miami will face off. Ole Miss with that great offense. Miami not too shabby on the
No.
offensive side with Carson Beck. The defense, though,
Yeah.
this is the question that everyone's asking. That Miami defensive line and what they did with Marcel Reed at A&M, will they do that also with Chambliss from Ole Miss, or will Ole Miss find a way to get Miami on their heels? Darren, when you look at this game, I know a lot of people already are saying Miami's going to win. What chance do you think Ole Miss has? Do you think they're going to win this game, or what do they have to do to beat Miami?
The biggest thing is they've got to, even if they don't win in the trenches on the line of scrimmage, they've got to make it a draw. They've got to make it a tie. They can't, because you look at what Miami's done, and yes, there's been a lot of conversation about what this squad has done and their quarterback has done or the receivers have done and all. But when you look at these two games, it is an absolute beating in the trenches that they have handed out on both sides of the ball. What their O line has done and what their D line has done, and also, I would add to that, I don't think their linebackers get enough credit. I think if you watch this linebacker crew and the way the D line occupies space, but the linebackers are playing with eye discipline and are getting where they need to go. Because a D lineman can fill a spot, but if a linebacker goes off chasing something and leaves an 8-foot hole, guess what a running back or quarterback can run through? And their linebackers aren't doing that. So it's two levels of really disciplined play on defense and an O line that's taking care of business. So Ole Miss has to figure out a way to at least make that a draw, to not just get beaten in the trenches. And if they can do that, and Chambliss has the kind of game that he did against Georgia, I think that's a formula for an Ole Miss win. But it's a tough, as insane as the sentence sounds, it's a tough draw. What this Miami team is doing on the nose of the ball is really, really incredible, and something there might be people that did, but I didn't see it coming. It really is something I didn't see coming at all.
Yeah, and I think what also makes Miami a tough out here is they have a good quarterback, Carson Beck. He's
Absolutely.
experienced.
Yeah.
He's played in a lot of big games already in his career. He's not going to get rattled. So I think Miami, maybe you tip the hat to them on the experience
Yeah.
side of things, but certainly the way Ole Miss is playing right now, you certainly cannot count them out in this game. I'm expecting a very exciting game.
The fun part of this is you have got two teams that are on a roll and are, it's a storybook roll. It's not just a little bit of a roll. Ole Miss is the team that everybody immediately, well, of course they'll get Tulane, but they've had a coaching change. They're done. Miami, they don't even deserve to be in this thing. Why are they even here? And then here we are with these two teams in the semifinal. So it's a storybook run. You're exactly right. I think it's going to be a very exciting game.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of runs, and we won't dive into this here, but it just occurred to me, Darren, Ole Miss beat Georgia.
Yep.
Georgia lost last year by double digits to Notre Dame.
Yep.
Do we need to sometime talk about Athens and what's happening here with the Georgia program? But that'd be for another show. This is why I should follow the script and not talk off my head or top of my head, right? Because you look at me like, what do you want me to do with this, man? This is not in the script.
Well, I'll run down that rabbit hole with you just a little bit. I think what's going on in Athens tells the story a little bit of the leveling, some form of leveling of the playing field that NIL has brought to the table. Just throw that out there. We can dig into that a different day, like you said, but I think that's part of what we're seeing in Athens. Just a thought.
Definitely, that's a great observation. In the other semifinal game, no SEC schools, but still, we're all going to be watching this
Oh,
game.
yeah.
Oregon will face off against Indiana. They met earlier this year, and Indiana won, I think, by 10 points in at Oregon.
Mhm.
This game is on Friday night, so back to back great nights of college football. It's tough to beat a conference opponent twice
Yeah.
in a season. Is that going to work to Oregon's advantage, or is this Indiana team just on cruise control?
Yeah, that's the thing. We were talking about Ole Miss and Miami being on a storybook run. I mean, could Indiana at any point of the way be counted out anymore than they have been? Uh, but at the same time, I don't care what conference you're talking about. I don't care what two teams you're talking about. It is tough to line up face to face with the same team twice in 1 year and pull off a W both times, especially when you're talking about a quality team that you're their only loss. We're not talking about a 6-6 team that you beat earlier on in the season. We're talking about you are their only loss. This is a quality team that puts up 36 points per game, has a 3,000-yard passer at quarterback, has a couple of great wide receivers, almost 1,000-yard rusher at running back in Whittington. This is not a team that you should have. Well, we should have beat them. This is hey, we went up against a quality team and beat them, but they're coming back. And they're coming back full strength, and they're coming back with momentum. And I would assume this Oregon coaching staff has been watching Indiana game tape probably since that first loss. This is, they didn't start all of a sudden breaking it down after the game was over this past weekend. They've been putting together a game plan for a while. So I think it may not necessarily work to Indiana's disadvantage, but it definitely creates an extra hurdle that's going to be difficult to overcome.
Yeah, you've got two good coaches, very strong personalities, Dan Lanning, Kurt Signetti. Uh,
Yep.
I like the matchup here. It's going to be another fun game to watch.
Yep.
I'm not going to bet against Indiana anymore.
No,
Not after last week
agree
when I
completely.
realized how mistaken I was about how good this team is. So that's going to be Friday night, and we'll find out who's going to play in the national championship game after that. So there's still football to be played.
And let's stop for a moment and give a shout out to Dan Lanning. So, because even when it would not benefit his team and he would be the road team, he's taken time to talk about how silly this system is with games being spread out over a 6 week period and neutral site games. Even when it wouldn't work out to his team's advantage, he has said this should be an on campus game. This should be something that the home team should be able to be excited about, not a neutral field game that takes place 3 weeks later. Got to give Dan Lanning props for being willing to step out, even when it doesn't benefit his team, and make that kind of statement. Really, really impressed by that.
Yeah. But what do you do with the bowls? I think that's the
I agree.
question that people have to figure out, because these bowls bring in so much money to the communities in which they are played. So
Absolutely.
how do we work out this playoff system with the bowl system? Because if you got communities that have hosted bowls for decades,
Yeah.
you take that bowl away, suddenly that's a big chunk of income that they were expecting that now they're not going to have. So
Yeah.
I think it's a multi-layered issue that Dane Lanning's right. I like playing the games at home.
Hmm.
How do we do that and still keep the bowl games at the level that they are?
Yeah. Absolutely. And I don't think we can say that we can trust the NCAA and the college football playoff committee to come up with an idea that really are a workable solution at this point, because we see how the selection goes. But anyways, different conversation. Different
We're
conversation,
chasing a lot of
different day.
rabbits today, aren't we?
Yeah.
Hey, give us a break while we chase rabbits, and hit that like, subscribe button. That means a lot.
Absolutely.
If you subscribe to the show, you'll be updated whenever new episodes come out. And leave a comment if you like something that we said. If you disagree with something, go ahead and leave a comment. We like to read what you write, your observations, your opinions, because we're all, at the end of the day, we're college football fans, particularly SEC football fans, and so we love this community. So thank you for watching
Absolutely.
at week in and week out. Enjoy the football this week, and we will be back next week with another full episode. Until then, y'all take care.
Have a great week.